take a look at this wheel this week. This is a newer design than the one you saw last week, but I think these are going to be the permanent specs on the drive wheel size and how high up the setup sits and stuff like that. So I'm going to test it out while I shoot this video, and yeah, we'll see how it does. This was going to be the week where I spun as much as I could in 10 minutes, and then we wind it off to see how many yards it was, but I cannot find my nitty knotty, so I'm going to have to skip that this week. I'll have to do it another time, but essentially I would get my yarn spun, and then I wouldn't be able to post the video until I found the nitty knotty and shot that part of winding off and whatnot. So I didn't want to take the time to do that because I kind of like to have these done by Wednesday every week. So hopefully we'll just get a little spun up tonight. We won't worry about how much is coming out, and by next week maybe we'll have the whole thing organized. Alright, so I don't know if you've noticed me doing this before, but all I'm doing here is spinning my leader. Then once I get it twisted out here about a yard, I can go ahead and take it off and slide it back down the spindle a bit. And that should do it. Alright. So this does go pretty quick, and I'm excited to see how much yarn it makes quickly. But I think then the following week I'll go ahead and spin on another spindle wheel, but one with a treadle, to see if the treadle helps get any more yardage in the same amount of time, because I think that would be interesting to find out. I apologize for my breathing if you can hear that on the video, but I am not the best at paying attention to my respiration, so sometimes I hold my breath too long and then I sigh big, or whatever it is you're hearing. And I hate the noise that the mic makes as it brushes against my beard, but at the moment I can't really do anything about that. I would like a way to mic my collar so that I don't have to worry about that as much, but I have not been able to figure out a way to do that just yet. So here in mid-Missouri, well, I guess everywhere, it's the beginning of March, which is nice because next month we'll be having the all-state spin-off here in Missouri up in Chillicothe this year. But I always like getting together with a whole bunch of spinners from around the state and seeing everybody's wheel and just hanging out and talking about fiber and stuff. I kind of enjoy it a little more than knitting gatherings because of the specialized nature of the spin-off. And my guild is a weaving and spinning guild, but I really kind of find my most enjoyment just amongst spinners. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm also going to the Knitting Pipeline Retreat in Washington, Illinois, just in a couple weeks. So I always love heading up there, and that'll be a lot of fun this year. Here's the thing with doing the 10-minute run. I think I'm still going to have to card as I go because I don't know how much fiber to card ahead of time. And I really think that's going to be a problem because if I don't get enough carded, I'm going to run out of fiber before I run out of time. But it just goes so fast if I'm not carding and spinning. If I'm just spinning the whole time, I have a feeling that's a whole lot of fiber to have prepped. And because I have to prep it on the hand cards, because I need to do the long draw, because this is a one-handed wheel, that's a lot of brushes of fiber just laying around. And when I say brushes of fiber, what I'm referring to is, I don't call them bats, because when I think of a bat, I think of, a drum carder. And I don't call them rollags because I don't roll them up. But essentially, when I pull off this, I consider this two brushes. So here's a brush, and here's a brush. I'm sure that's not the technical term for them, but that's a lot of these little pieces to just have laying by the side of my chair so that I can spin and go, spin and go. So I'll have to see if I want to prep it or if we just kind of want to time 10 minutes of carding and spinning, So if I had to guess, I would say the second would be the way I'm going to go. But we'll see what we can do. Dum, 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 dum. I really like this wheel. This is the third incarnation of this setup that I've done. And the first one had a diameter of 21 3/4 inches across, which of course is what a diameter is, but you probably already knew that. Then the next one switched to 19, I think. And this is down to 17 because I really like the smaller drive wheels. Of course, I had to see, what spindle pulley I could come up with. And it's pretty easy for me to do a 1-inch spindle pulley. That's a 1-inch diameter. But I'd really like to get a 3/4 inch spindle pulley made. It's just, that's kind of tricky, and it's a little bit dangerous when you're on a saw to try to cut a 1/4 inch by a 1/4 inch square out of a 1x, because there's no good way to hold the wood while you're cutting those small pieces off. So I don't know that I really want to come up with a design that has me always cutting those small cubes just to make the spindle pulley. Probably the 1 inch is what I'm safest at. So with this wheel, having a 17-inch diameter and a 1-inch diameter spindle pulley, and they're both octagons, that means that it's proportionate, and this is a 17-to-1 ratio. If I'm switched to the 3/4 inch spindle pulley and kept this same 17-inch drive wheel, that would give me a 23-to-1 ratio. And I think that'd be nice if I could come up with a safe and easy way to make those spindle pulleys. Although you do kind of run out of time to draft when you're at that high of a ratio, because unless you're really moving the wheel slow, which you can with a hand actuated wheel, it's a little less easy with a treadle, because with the treadle you kind of have to keep a rate that'll move the wheel completely around each rotation. But with the hand actuated wheel, you can really go slow with the drive wheel, which is nice. That amount of control is one of the benefits to doing it by hand, not to mention not having as much of your body in use. I think this one's ready. So again, I have 2 brushes or 2 cards of wool here. I always start off with the smaller one. I think I probably mentioned that before, but I didn't know if you noticed they usually are disproportionate when they come off of the cards, and I just picked the smaller one. Oh, and by the way, the further I slip my hand out here, the easier this is to move around with little effort, but the further out here, the faster my arm moves. The closer in to the axle here I go, the slower my arm moves. Well, actually, it's kind of moving at the same rate because I guess we're doing the same rotation here. But the less the movement. I'm just barely moving my hand. It is taking a little more push to get in here, but it's also, like I said, taking a lot less actuation by my hand to move the wheel around. So it's up to you. Most likely what you want to do is you want to start out here, and as you start to push, you just slide your hand down and then move it around as the wheel is already in motion. So in here is high gear, and out here is low gear. So you start in low gear and go up to your high gear. So what's funny about this wheel is you can adjust the spindle arrangement, like how close it is to the drive wheel or how far out it is. You can adjust the size of the drive wheel and how close it is down to this, which you want it as close to this as you can without hitting it, because then you're not supporting much weight too far out from the cross beam, and that's a good thing. The further out here you go, the more weight you're putting on this support. But the thing is the legs down below almost have to be at that length, because if they're not at that length, then you run into not having the center axis of the wheel high enough that you can gently do it kind of right here at hip level. What I want, and what I assume most people want, is a wheel that's easy to turn just by like having your hand down at your side. You don't want to have to keep your hand up to turn something, and you don't want to reach down to turn something. So what you want is just something right here that you can just turn right at your side. And because of that, these measurements are set. And when I say these measurements are set, that's because you want to go with a 45-degree angle. And I can't go too far into why that is, but essentially 45-degree cross here makes it a 45-degree to cut on the floor so that it's flat, and it makes it easy to block on both sides of the support so they hold it in place. It makes everything easier while you're constructing. So if you have to have your 45-degree angle, which I would argue you do for ease of build, then you have to have that many inches so that it sits up far enough that this is at your side. So that's what all the proportions are based on. And then, like I said, you could have that out there farther or here farther. It can go up further. That all depends on you. But what I have it set at is when these go together, I just want this upper receiver to miss where this wheel is screwed in. So, like, I don't have this any longer than it has to be to where it'll clear this in so that it sandwiches together. And that's it. I have it built for compact and ease of travel. And then with the 17-inch drive wheel because I felt like that was the best fit, and then I made the drive wheel out of a 1x3. And of course it's 6 foot, and I think the lumber I used for the rest of it was 8 foot. And it goes together pretty quick and easy. I like it. I also like that it's instantly more recognizable than some of the treadle wheels that you'd see today. You know, when people approach you in public on one of these things, they kind of already know what you're doing, and they're used to seeing this kind of setup where there's a wheel beside you and a spindle out in front of you, so it's a little less foreign to them. I'm really enjoying spinning this. Alright, that's our warning shot. I'm probably going to finish this card and then do another set of cards, and that'll be it for this week. So what you see when I'm doing a normal run here, by the time I get done with this quill, I've got it more than halfway full for the first single. So like when I'm done tonight, I'll be 2/3 of the way through this quill. And then once I spin the other third, I'll pull it off, put it on the lazy Kate. I'll do the same thing again. So essentially, by the time I've spun about 3 times what you see me do in a single episode, I'm ready to ply them together and then wind them off into a ball. And that works well for me because, well, I'm not there yet. Let me put a little more on, and then you'll kind of have an idea of what 2/3 is. But essentially, the reason I'm going with this amount is because by the time I've put that much on one quill and then done another quill the same size, spun them up back on a quill on the same spindle, it's pretty heavily loaded, but then when I wind off onto my cake winder, it actually is to capacity. So I don't worry as much about how much fiber I've spun, whether it's 2 ounces or 3 ounces or whatnot. And I don't worry about the yardage as much. What I worry about is how full this is before I pull it off, how full the next one is before I pull them off, so that I can ply them back on and then spin them off on the ball winder without it being too cumbersome for the ball winder to accept. And those of you who have had and used the ball winder, you know that if you keep it under tension while you're winding, you can get the fiber compressed more and you can get more yarn on there. And I should mention, I don't do that when I don't have to. If I'm going to do like a sweater sleeve, so I'm going to need several balls of yarn, I do like to keep them compressed so that I know that when they're in my bag, they're kind of tightly wound and held down in there. But for most other work and for presentation's sake, I usually wind my balls on the cake winder, the ball winder without tension, so they're kind of large and fluffy and ornate. And this is the proportion that you do if you don't want to overfill that. So this would be 2/3. By the time I did half of what I did tonight and put it on this quill, I'm halfway to that ball of yarn. And it goes fast. When I started knitting, I really didn't like the fact that it was going to take so long until I was going to have a finished project, which is kind of funny because after you knit for a while, you figure out that you don't like finishing projects, you like working on projects. But I did get to the point to where I didn't mind knitting projects, but I kind of wanted to knit out of my own hand spun, and had the issue that I really didn't want it to take a lot of time just to produce the medium that I was going to be using to knit with, which of course means I was missing the point of spinning. And you know, now that I'm to the point that I kind of enjoy spinning and don't want to rush it, it really goes so fast that I don't get to sit back and relax and enjoy it anyways. It's so easy now to spin such large quantities of yarn quickly that I really can be like, if I want to knit something this weekend, I don't even have to put time aside or make sure I get to a wheel just to have, 2 or 3 ounces of hand spun yarn. I know I'm going to have at least that much by the weekend, just sitting down for 10 or 15 minutes a day and spinning, because it goes so quick once you're practiced. Oh, and I guess this is my last card, so this is it. And once it gets about this big, you would think it would take a while for it to get bigger, the cop, because as you're expanding out, it's taking more yarn just to add another layer and a layer on top of that. But for some reason, mine seems to go quick after I get out this far. After the cob is getting thick, it seems to double in size pretty fast, and I'm not really sure what accounts for that. It should be the opposite. You should be doubling the size of your cob quickly and easily when there's hardly anything on there, because you're getting so many more rotations out of just your yard of fiber. But as it fills up, it's taking more circumference to get around the thicker diameter. So like I said, it should take longer to get off, and it really doesn't. So I'm not sure why that happens, but I know that it almost compounds the speed as you go, or at least it seems like it. Well, I think that's all we're going to do this week, and I hope you like the video, but maybe next week by this time we can get speed run in, and the following week do a comparison run. So that would be exciting.